I think one of the great things about Priest Holmes is that it was so unexpected. He was like a meteorite.
Second and goal. You know that Holmes is going to get the ball. Here it is again behind Richardson. Outside. Puts it in. Touchdown. He walked right in. There's the NFL record for Priest Holmes.
The great running backs are always tough to put your hands on because they're the first one of themselves.
He was not one of these guys who was just hard to tackle. He was elusive in the truest sense of the word. Nobody ever seemed to get a clear, solid-on hit on him.
And I think that's what made him so unique, is that his patience of what he did.
A lot of times, runners generally don't have that type of patience, and he would just wait and create and wait for those linemen to establish those lanes.
He was cerebral. He was always thinking 2-3 steps ahead. It was like he was playing chess while other running backs are just playing checkers.
When an athlete retires, his time in professional sports can be a fleeting memory, or for some, a legacy that lasts for the ages. These legacies are built from two factors: performance on the field and style that is interpreted by the public. Few players can be defined by a hobby in the way that Priest Holmes can, by chess. Both on the field and off, he has been described as calculated, focused, and even clairvoyant. And upon arriving at the University of Texas in 1992, Priest would begin to display another defining characteristic of his career: resiliency.
Priest Holmes came out of San Antonio Marshall, just down the road from Texas, about 70 miles. I don't remember him being as highly sought-after recruit as a lot of Texas running backs, like a Cedric Benson, like a Ricky Williams, somebody like that. He was always kind of undersized.
I thought he was better than what some of the college people thought. I mean, they were always a little skeptical of his speed. I understand that. But, I tried to tell the college people, I said, hey, watch all the video. Watch all the video and nobody catches him. I said, how fast do you want him to be? Nobody catches him.
Big cutback hole to the inside. Excellent vision. Knowing somebody's going for his feet, picking his legs up. And I know this, every college recruiter in this stadium just jumped up and down saying, oh, I hope he considers that.
When he got here, he was very much under the radar, and like a lot of people probably in Kansas City would think, he was very quiet, shy, kind of introverted. There was not the hullabaloo over Anthony Holmes, as we knew him back then, that it came to be later.
And welcome to West Texas. We're glad to have you with us for North Carolina and Texas.
I don't know if either team really wanted to be there that much, and it was almost like, okay, let's play the bowl game, let's get it over with. And then, Priest Holmes just goes crazy.
Priest Holmes into North Carolina territory. Holmes into the end zone. Touchdown, Texas. Number 9. What a run. Priest Holmes, touchdown, Longhorn. The pitch. Holmes leaps. What a play. Touchdown, Texas. Priest Holmes gives Texas the lead.
And, they're going nuts on TV and everything. I said, he can do that any day he wants to. That's just the way he is. You guys just need to watch him more often. He can do stuff like that.
When I think about Priest Holmes at the University of Texas, he made his name, in the '94 Sun Bowl against an Mack Brown North Carolina team, and then he capped it off in 1996 with that great Big 12 championship game performance against Nebraska.
Welcome to the Trans World Dome in St. Louis, where North meets South for the inaugural 1996 Big 12 Championship.
Something special about that game that a lot of people didn't realize is that Coach Vermeil commentated that game.
My last year in broadcasting, and I was standing next to Coach Makovic, talking to him about the game, and he said, to me, he says, Ricky Williams is getting all the publicity, but the player of the game will probably be Priest Holmes. I said, oh, is that right?
Texas was playing a very heavily favored Nebraska team.
Yeah, that's going to be a game I'll probably never forget.
Something really special about that game, the first Big 12 championship.
Nebraska was a 3-touchdown favorite, You know, it was a foregone conclusion. You know, Nebraska's going to, wipe the mat with Texas and then go to the national championship game if things fall their way.
They had just won a couple of national championships. There was no way in the world we should have hung with these guys.
Wistrom is back on the field. It's first down for the Horns. They'll run away from him this time. And they bust one. Touchdown, Texas. Oh, baby. There'll be no catching the Priest this time.
And Texas just took it to him. You know, Priest Holmes was running crazy.
Priest lit it up. I think he had 137 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, and he was unstoppable, and he was very impressive.
Priest Holmes, where are you? Okay. Priest has something to say to you guys.
Let's go, baby. December 1991, I was playing championship football, baby. We came in halftime 14-7 up on Odessa perimeter. The only difference is we thought we had won the game at halftime. Same position, baby, we up. They shouldn't come back. Championship football, we gotta go out there and play. I'm telling you, they done been here before. We here now, championship football, baby, we gotta come to play. This second half, championship football, we playing. Go, baby.
And now it is a 1st and 10 outside the 10-yard line. Here's Holmes, comeback, touchdown, Longhorns. There it is. Texas has done it.
I think that's where his whole mental process was. He wanted to do it on the field. And corny thing, he did it his way, right? You know, nothing was given to this guy. You know, he had to earn everything that he got.
There's 2 kinds of free agent signings in the NFL. One is the big, glitzy, earth-changing free agent signing. You know, Reggie White goes to Green Bay. And then there's the rest of the signings, which is you just sense GMs are trying to fit players into spots. And when it was announced that Priest Holmes signed with the Chiefs, it was, I think, the reaction among Chiefs fans then was pretty much a collective yawn.
There was a phone call made to me, and Coach Vermeil said that we're going to go either one or 2 ways. We're going to go one with a younger quarterback, younger running back out of the draft, or we're going to go ahead and trade up to get Trent Green, and then, of course, you would come with him. And so I got that call, and, of course, he says, guess who our quarterback's going to be? And when he said Trent Green, I knew I was going to be a Chief. So I was really excited about that.
I said, you know, I remember this guy. And I remember what Coach McAvick said. He said, this guy can play.
Well, I think the media obviously was more focused on Trent and getting our starting quarterback, but also heard that we had signed Priest Holmes, who had at least one really fine year as a running back, starting running back with Baltimore.
There's this undrafted free agent who's had some success at Baltimore, but had lost his job at Jamal Lewis, as you would expect an undrafted free agent would, and now he's coming to Kansas City. So what?
You know, I think there was a lot more fanfare about Trent Green. You know, this was a guy who had put up big numbers when he'd gotten the opportunity to get out on the field for the Rams, and this franchise needed a quarterback. And when they got him, that was all the conversation. It was really a footnote that Priest Holmes was going to be signed.
Be quick on the movement now. Good, right there, Priest. There you go. That's it, good timing on it. That's the way it should look. Good, make him miss, good job.
Adding those 2 new guys to our team, we weren't sure what they were going to bring to the table, knowing that Priest was coming in, but he had an injury. And then the year before that, having Trent go through the same issue, we weren't sure what we were getting with those 2 guys.
When he came to training camp, he was ready. And I remember that was one of the concerns he had. Will I get a chance to be that every down player running back? Because I think and I know I can do it.
We didn't really know how we were going to utilize Priest. I think there was the anticipation or the hope that we could do some of the same things with Priest that we did with Marshall Faulk over in St. Louis with the offense.
I think the expectation was that the fans and the people who fill up the seats at Arrowhead, they just wanted points. They wanted action. They wanted offense of some kind. They really hadn't gotten much of that.
There was a feeling that this organization, which had really been defensive-minded for a long time and had really struggled to put a dynamic offense on the field, was going to come out of the dark ages. But how fast they were going to do it and how good it was going to be, I think was still a long way off in fans' minds.
Even the guys that were on our roster at that time knew what we were getting when we signed Priest. They thought that, oh, he's just the running back's going to come through the league, play about 2 or 3 years, and then he's out. So I don't think anyone really knew that he was going to break onto the scene like he did.
I had knew of Priest, but I don't think any of us knew that he was capable of doing the great things that he did here in Kansas City.
Nobody. And I think if you were to hook up Carl Peterson to a polygraph machine, he would not say that he thought Priest Holmes was going to do what he did. It's a great signing, but I don't think anybody had any sense of what Priest Holmes was about to unleash.
A lot of people don't remember when Priest first got here. I'm not gonna say he was struggling, but he really wasn't, picking up on the offense very well, and really wasn't clicking into the scheme.
Coming into the team, the first 2 weeks were a little hard for me to even swallow, because initially I came in thinking, okay, these guys are, trading up to get me to come in. I'm a free agent, but I got here, and I believe I had in 2 games no more than like 13 carries. It was like 6 carries for the first game, 7 carries for the second game. My first pass in the NFL, it was an angle route for 5 yards, and you come across where the linebacker is, and I dropped the freaking ball. So of course, that didn't make it any better, but for 13 carries, my feelings were a little bit hurt, of course.
I think they kind of looked at the situation, they were going to do a running back by committee deal. He had no opportunity in the first 2 games to get anything done. So obviously, the coaching staff wasn't sold that this guy was going to be the guy, but he changed that in the 3rd game of the season, that's for sure.
The first time you went, okay, this guy can be good, was the game in Washington.
For Dick Vermeil, it is a building process. He's got something that he's working with right now. And the Chiefs offensive players believe this might be the week that they finally break out and start doing things.
We were in Washington. We were trying to get our first win. And, Priest and I going back and forth with carries. And
I like the combination, Tony Richardson and Priest Holmes. This is a good power, running, quick-hitting combination that appears to work for him. Until today, it really hadn't worked for him.
And all of a sudden, he just starts taking off.
And we explode.
Green. Again, good time. Finding Holmes, running down the side, breaks a tackle, and Pierce. Got a block inside, and it's a touchdown.
This cat comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, who is this kid?
Up the middle, it goes to Holmes. Huge push, and drives into the end zone.
What a run. I said I'd love to see this guy turn him loose and see what he could do. We just saw it.
We watched Priest just sort of elevate his game, and once he started getting, hey, I can do this, or we'll do this, and we'll do that, that's when you knew he arrived.
First and 10 handoff. Here comes Holmes, a block ahead, provided by Donnie Willis. He's going to go in for a touchdown. Unbelievable run by Priest Holmes. His 3rd touchdown today.
You see, flashes of like, Emmitt Smith. You see flashes of guys like Barry Sanders, and that's, rare to even put running backs in that category. But Priest has something special. For me personally, that's when I kind of knew that this isn't a normal running back. He is very, he has a gift.
Sensational run by Priest Holmes.
He showed he was a big play waiting to happen on every handoff. Whether it was catching the ball in the flat, on a screen, whether it was just a handoff between the tackles outside, you just never knew what play could go for big yardage. And he started doing that against the Redskins.
Priest Holmes is back in business. He has a receiving touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns, and the Chiefs are shredding the Redskin defense.
Priest Holmes established the fact that, this offense was going to run through him.
And then after that happened, Tony Richardson stepped up and he says, you know what, I know that they've kind of been, allowing me to run the ball because I was a running back last year, but I really believe in you. He says, you know what, in order for us to have some success, I'm going to make the decision. I'm going to be your fullback. I want you to be our running back. I'm going to block for you, and I'm going to let the coaches know, how I feel about this. And for a guy that had the opportunity to still play as our starting running back, because he did the year before I got there, unselfish.
A guy like Priest, free agent draft pick, you just sense that he had something to prove at all times.
He was playing with a chip on his shoulder. You could tell. You could tell the way he went about practice, and you can tell just his demeanor and everything. He was playing with a bit of a chip on his shoulder.
He was an easy guy to get behind and he definitely became the engine of that offense.
We knew that at that point that it was going to be tough to stop us in any way, and our mental makeup changed at that game of basically we could do anything we wanted to and score as many points as we wanted to against any team.
And you see the potential of our offense both in our quarterback and our running back. But that really encouraged me and encouraged everybody. Hey, we are on the right track. We just be patient. Don't panic. Keep doing what we're doing and try to do it better. That eventually we're going to be a good football team.
Really, we started seeing some sparks about potentially what this offense could be and what Priest could be as a running back and what he brought to the table. Things started gelling and coming together, and that was, that was good to see.
Well, as I sit here and talk about it, I get excited because it was so fun to watch these guys play.
The Week 3 game in Washington would prove to be the genesis of offensive dominance that defined the Chiefs of the early 2000s. And over the course of the season, Priest would establish himself as the nucleus of that offense.
Here's a handoff to Priest. Holmes around the side.
And again, some razzle-dazzle. Holmes with a stunner step move.
The shifty and elusive Priest Holmes.
All the way across the field. Look out. Holmes 35-30. Breaks the tackle. Gets a downfield block.
And here he goes. Breaking the tackle at the 5. And he's into the end zone.
Left side has a hole. 25-20 into the secondary. Angles left hand. 5. Touchdown. Kansas City.
For me, it was really the Pittsburgh game where he broke out and had 180 yards against a salty Steeler defense.
And then, like 3 or 4 weeks later, I think he gained 181 yards against San Diego, and it was his 3rd career game that season.
I think at that point it became clear, look, this guy and this team and this offensive line and this offense can run the ball. I think you started to realize this is where this offense has to go, and I think it was there that things began to shift within the organization, and I think that's when the fans started to go, okay, this guy's for real.
And you started sensing we might really have something here. By the time you get to 2002, there's a game that the Chiefs played up in New York against the Jets. And it was back and forth because the defense was not really developing. And so at that time, it had become clear that for the Chiefs to win, they were going to have to outscore people.
Herman told us before the game, he said, listen, I don't care if they pass for 500 yards. We must control Priest Holmes if we want to have a chance to win this football game.
It's one of those games where you hear about a guy like Michael Jordan get into the zone and go out and hit 60, or guys just go out and go 5 for 5, 4 home runs or something crazy. It was one of those type of games where there was nothing that the Jets defense could do to stop him.
Blitz defenders inside the 5. Touchdown. There was no way he was going to be denied getting into the end zone.
I can't imagine that anybody in the league is playing it better than Priest Holmes is right now.
Priest did everything. Ran for 100-plus yards, caught nearly 100 yards in passing.
He'd run right, and we're all blocking right, and he'd cut back and break 3 or 4 tackles.
And made this great catch and run for the touchdown, just gliding into the corner of the end zone for what turned out to be the winning touchdown.
Steps up, fires left, he's got Holmes at the 15, inside the 10 to the 5, he dives, touchdown! Kansas City, 19 yards, Chiefs take the lead on a touchdown.
What a day by just a magnificent football player.
I remember watching that game and thinking, this team is in almost any game they play because they've got this amazing player in the backfield, and they've got the right people, Vermeil and Al Saunders, who knew how to use him, and a great offensive line in front of him.
Great decision. Great decision. There you go. That's the way to crease it. Good. That's the way to hit it, Priest. Good.
I think that, the opportunity was perfect and the timing was just right, where now he's a feature back and he's getting the ball 20, 25, 30 times a game. And I think in that situation in Baltimore, he would have been just as great. Unfortunately, they drafted another running back in the 1st round. But, I think I don't think it surprised him because I think he expected to be great. And it wasn't like an arrogance or anything like that, but he knew that he put in more time than the majority of the people that we were playing against, and definitely more time than most of the running backs that, we were going to compete against across the other sideline.
I don't know if I've ever been around a running back that prepared himself. Yes, he had the talent and the skills and the work ethic, but the off-field preparation, then post-practice preparation that Priest Holmes put in.
You know, he did some things that I had never seen anybody that I had played with before. The one thing he always did that stood out to me was on Saturdays after our walkthrough. We get done with the team walkthrough and everybody else would leave, but Priest would always grab a football and he would literally go out on the field by himself and he would go through these visualizations.
After we got off the field, he would actually walk through all the different things, all the different scenarios, all the different things that could be thrown at him in a game so that he could mentally prepare himself.
He had a sheet of paper in his hands, and he was going through all the plays that were in the game plan. He didn't take anything for granted, which you would expect from a guy who wasn't drafted.
Mentally, it was just a matter of me knowing what I wanted the outcome to be. And although you can't control that on an offensive side 100%, but you can control just your preparation and your approach to the play.
And I think it gave him the ability to take his game to another level because he has such great understanding of what we were doing with the ball and what the linemen were doing, and then coordinated what he knew what the defense was doing, and he could anticipate the reactions.
And believe it or not, plays that I would go over that Saturday afternoon that I felt that I would be able to score on, many times I would end up scoring touchdowns the way that I visualized it that day before.
Home has the first, he's in open field, Logan to beat, and he's got his third rushing touchdown today.
And you always felt like he knew where the hole was going to be before anyone else on the field, even before it opened up. And when he was running, it seemed to me that he would be setting up the move that he was about to make, knowing that the hole was going to pop to his left or right, and then he'd scoot through it and score another touchdown.
Priest's inclination towards strategy and tactics was visible in every part of his life. If he wasn't visualizing that week's game plan on the field, he could often be found playing a heated game of chess off the field.
It's a game of war, I guess, in a sense. So he would try to figure out what is the best way to do this or do that. And what better game to play than chess to be a tactician and to win a game.
It definitely correlates, football and chess. And the one piece that I always really spoke of is the piece of sacrificing. At the end of the day, you have to sacrifice a piece in order to checkmate the king. And so for me, I always looked at it as my offensive lineman. When I would run certain plays, I literally would know I would have to sacrifice my actual linemen.
Priest Holmes, 20. Following his blocking across the 25, across the 30.
Making sure that how patient am I going to be behind the lineman between our breakout into the open field, which linebacker I'm going to set up and bring him into an offensive lineman, and then I'll have the ability to escape.
One move can cause this to happen or cause this to happen. I think that's the way he looked at life. Like, you know, if he does this, then it's going to be a direct reflection on this.
It's a thinking man's game, and Priest was a thinking man's running back, so to speak. Where other running backs are just thinking, where's the open seam? Well, he knew where the open seam was, so he would set you up by knowing where it would be.
Pitch is to Holmes, left side, picking his way through. Holmes, touchdown!
He took his time, he set up your blocks really well. He utilized the scheme to his advantage. And so, you know, he said, hey, hold that block a little longer. I'm going to set him, and then I'm going to show up. So you just knew you just had to stay with your guy, run your feet, keep working, and eventually he'll show up where he should be to make the big plays.
Trying the near side. Holmes, touchdown. Talk about patience.
He wasn't the fastest guy. He certainly wasn't the biggest guy, but he ran with power.
He doesn't get enough credit for the power he had because of his stats or his size, his strength that he had in his legs. Teams are trying to do arm tackles and those kinds of things. They're just going to bounce right off him, or he's going to spin out of it and keep going.
Cuts it back left inside the 5, breaks 2 tackles, and squirts into the end zone.
If he thought that this guy was just going to go down, forget about it.
He seemed undersized, he seemed not lightning fast, but the thing that you saw week in and week out was if he got any sort of space at all, he was someone like Jim Brown because he had a little bit of a shimmy, a little bit of a juke, a duck, a feint, and sometimes he would elude guys, but he never seemed to get hit flush. He always seemed to be just a split second ahead of whoever it was that was tackling him, and so he was fascinating to watch. It wasn't as though he was leaving people in the dust. It was he was out thinking them, out moving them, out faking them, and gaining more yards.
First down and more. 40, 30.
Great runners have great vision.
and they can see what is developing in front of him. And he saw that the inside area was open for the first down. That's what he took, and he picked it up.
He had three things. He had the patience to wait for his linemen and the receivers to establish those blocks. He had the vision to be able to see where that lane was going to be. He let those guys set up the block, and then once he had that vision, he knew where to go with the ball. And then, of course, he had the speed and acceleration to where it could just burst through the hole. And you have those three things. A lot of times running backs will have two of those, or maybe one of those. Maybe they're really fast, but they don't have the patience. Or maybe they have great vision, but they don't have the burst to get through the hole. Priest had all three of those things, and I think that's what made him so special.